Good evening. Welcome to Inside News. I'm Serena. It's Monday, October 20th, 2025, and our mission remains unchanged: to bring you the events shaping our world, especially those that don't always make the headlines. Tonight, we are examining 12 critical developments across 4 continents. From ceasefire violations in Gaza to an economic standoff between Washington and New Delhi. From an audacious heist at a Paris museum to tech outages affecting millions. We are also tracking humanitarian crises in Sudan and Yemen, environmental emergencies from Delhi to the Philippines, and the strategic partnerships redrawing the Indo-Pacific. These are the stories that matter. Let's begin. We start with tonight's top developments from the Middle East, where a fragile peace is hanging by a thread. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, barely a week old, is facing its most serious challenge. On Sunday, Israeli forces conducted massive airstrikes across Gaza, following the deaths of 2 soldiers in what Israel calls a Hamas attack near Rafah. Major Yaniv Kula and Staff Sergeant Itay Yavitz died in an incident involving gunfire and anti-tank missiles. Israel retaliated by striking dozens of targets across the territory. Hamas denies responsibility. The militant group claims it had no contact with fighters in the Rafah area and accuses Israel of fabricating pretexts to justify renewed aggression. Hamas spokesman Izzat al-Rishq called the Israeli actions a deliberate violation of the ceasefire agreement. The violence comes amid an already tense situation regarding deceased hostages. Israel insists that Hamas knows the location of several bodies still buried under the rubble in Gaza. Hamas claims it has handed over all remains currently accessible without specialized equipment and more time. To date, 16 deceased Israeli hostages remain in Gaza. The humanitarian situation worsens daily. Israel closed the Rafah crossing on Sunday, cutting off essential aid flows. Although it agreed to resume deliveries today, the UN World Food Programme warns that without full border access, particularly in northern Gaza, where famine was declared in August, millions face catastrophic hunger. This ceasefire was brokered by the Trump administration after 2 years of devastating war. The deal secured the release of 20 living Israeli hostages and nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. But with no agreement on Hamas's disarmament or the future of Gaza, the hardest questions remain unanswered. Turning to economic diplomacy, President Trump issued a blunt ultimatum to India aboard Air Force One this evening. Speaking to reporters, Trump stated that India will continue to face massive tariffs unless it halts all purchases of Russian oil. I spoke with Prime Minister Modi of India, and he told me he's not going to do that Russian oil thing anymore, Trump said. But if they want to say otherwise, then they're just going to keep paying massive tariffs, and they don't want to do that. This is the 3rd time in a week Trump has made this claim. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs flatly denies any such conversation took place. Spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal stated the ministry is not aware of any conversation between Modi and Trump regarding oil imports. The stakes are high. Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods, with half of those specifically targeting Russian oil purchases. India has become Russia's largest oil customer since Western sanctions began in 2022, importing roughly 1.6 million barrels per day, approximately 1/3 of India's total crude imports. India's position remains firm. New Delhi calls the tariffs unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. The government maintains that its energy policy prioritizes stable prices and secure supplies for Indian consumers. With oil imports expected to rise 20% this month to 1.9 million barrels daily, according to commodity data firm Kepler, there is no indication of an immediate reversal. Washington argues these purchases fund Russia's war machine in Ukraine. New Delhi counters that energy security is a national imperative and points out that Western nations themselves continue various forms of trade with Moscow. We turn now to Europe, where France is dealing with an audacious crime that has shocked the nation. Thieves used a construction crane to smash through a reinforced window at the Louvre Museum in Paris, stealing priceless French princely jewels before fleeing on motorcycles. The heist occurred in the early morning hours as security patrols were changing shifts. French Minister of Justice, Jean-Marc Ayrault, called it a national humiliation. And investigations are focusing on how the criminals obtained detailed information about the museum's security protocols and shift timings. The stolen collection includes pieces from French royal families dating back centuries, items considered irreplaceable parts of French cultural heritage. The Louvre, home to the Mona Lisa and host to nearly 10 million visitors annually, has faced criticism for its security lapses. This incident raises urgent questions about protective measures at major cultural institutions across Europe. Opposition parties in the National Assembly are demanding immediate security audits at all major museums. From cultural heritage to digital infrastructure, Amazon Web Services suffered a massive global outage on Sunday, disrupting services used by millions worldwide. The failure, centered in AWS's US East 1 data center in Virginia, took down popular platforms like Fortnite, Snapchat, and numerous business applications. The disruption lasted approximately 6 hours, causing estimated losses in the millions of dollars. The incident exposes a critical vulnerability in global digital infrastructure, single points of failure. AWS controls roughly 32% of the cloud computing market. When it goes down, a substantial portion of the internet goes with it. Tech analysts warn this should serve as a wake-up call. Diversifying cloud services, improving redundancy protocols, and investing in backup systems are no longer optional for businesses dependent on digital operations. The outage affected e-commerce, financial services, healthcare platforms, and educational institutions across North America and Europe. AWS released a statement acknowledging the failure, but has not yet provided details on the root cause or preventative measures. Our focus shifts to two humanitarian crises unfolding far from the international spotlight. In Yemen, Houthi rebels have detained 20 United Nations aid workers and confiscated their equipment. The arrests took place in multiple locations in rebel-held territory, and the UN says it has lost contact with the detainees. This escalation threatens aid delivery to millions of desperate Yemenis. The country is enduring nearly a decade of civil war, with 21 million people requiring humanitarian assistance. The detention of UN staff represents a direct challenge to international humanitarian law and complicates ongoing peace negotiations with Saudi Arabia. In Sudan's Darfur region, the Rapid Support Forces are advancing on Fasher, the last major city under government control. The paramilitary group has been besieging the city for months, and reports from the ground describe intense fighting and civilian casualties. The United Nations warns of an imminent catastrophe. More than 800,000 people have been displaced by fighting in Darfur this year alone. Food supplies are critically low, medical facilities have collapsed, and access for humanitarian organizations remains severely restricted. International mediation efforts have yielded no results. The African Union and the Arab League have called for immediate ceasefire talks. But neither side has shown a willingness to negotiate. This concludes our main coverage. Now for stories that deserve your attention. Delhi is choking. The Indian capital recorded hazardous air quality levels during Diwali celebrations, with pollution reaching critical thresholds that pose severe health risks to the city's 30 million residents. The air quality index surpassed 400 in several districts, well into the severe category where authorities recommend avoiding all outdoor activity. The annual festival traditionally involves massive fireworks displays, and despite partial bans, the festive explosions combined with vehicle emissions and crop burning in surrounding states created a toxic atmospheric cocktail. Delhi has implemented Level 4 GRAP emergency measures, the highest tier, including construction bans, restrictions on diesel vehicles, and orders for schools to switch to remote learning. The pollution crisis is an annual recurrence, yet effective long-term solutions remain elusive. Health officials report that hospital admissions for respiratory issues have tripled since last week. Children, elderly residents, and those with pre-existing conditions face the greatest danger. Typhoon Fengshen has made landfall in the Philippines, killing at least 5 people and triggering widespread flooding across Luzon and a deadly landslide in Mindanao. Winds reached 150 kilometers per hour, 93 miles per hour, destroying homes and infrastructure across the central Philippines. More than 200,000 people evacuated coastal areas ahead of the storm, but the death toll is expected to rise as rescue teams reach isolated communities. The Philippines faces increasing vulnerability to extreme weather events. This is the 17th named storm of the Pacific typhoon season, and meteorologists warn that warming ocean temperatures are intensifying storm systems. International aid organizations are mobilizing emergency response teams. The government has declared a state of calamity in 4 provinces, allowing for the faster deployment of resources and funds for reconstruction. A controversial debate in conservation science has reached a critical vote. The International Union for Conservation of Nature has narrowly approved the controlled use of synthetic biology to modify threatened species. The decision allows for genetic modification techniques to help vulnerable species adapt to rapidly changing environments, particularly those affected by climate change. Scientists supporting the measure argue it represents a necessary tool to prevent extinctions when traditional conservation methods have failed. Critics warn of unpredictable ecosystemic consequences. Altering a species' genetic makeup could trigger cascading effects through food webs and ecological relationships that scientists cannot fully anticipate. The vote was extraordinarily close, reflecting deep divisions within the scientific community. Implementation will require strict oversight, thorough environmental impact assessments, and case-by-case approval processes. This represents a fundamental shift in conservation philosophy, from preserving nature as it exists to actively engineering species for survival in altered environments. Russian forces are continuing to advance in eastern Ukraine despite the Alaska summit between Presidents Trump and Putin less than 2 months ago. Ukrainian military officials report that Russian troops have captured several villages in the Donetsk Oblast and are pushing toward key supply lines. Furthermore, Ukrainian air defense systems detected Russian surveillance drones in Romanian airspace near the NATO border, raising alarm about a potential escalation. President Trump has threatened direct U.S. military action if Russia violates the Ukrainian territorial integrity established in the Alaska Agreement. "We will have no choice but to respond forcefully," Trump said during an Oval Office briefing. The situation contradicts the optimistic assessments following the summit. European allies are expressing concern that Russia used the diplomatic talks to buy time for military preparations, rather than genuinely pursuing peace. Energy security remains a central concern for Eastern European nations, with winter approaching and natural gas supplies dependent on stable conditions. Finally tonight, India and Australia have strengthened their defense ties through expanded technology transfers and indigenous weapons development programs. The annual Defense Dialogue in Canberra produced agreements on the joint production of advanced missile systems, maritime surveillance technology, and cybersecurity capabilities. both nations emphasized indigenization, the development of domestic defense industries to reduce dependency on imports. This deepening partnership reflects strategic calculations regarding Indo-Pacific security. With China's growing military presence and territorial claims, middle powers are building cooperative frameworks for mutual defense and technological advancement. Economic benefits accompany the security cooperation. Australian defense contractors will establish production facilities in India, creating thousands of jobs in both nations and building supply chain resilience. The partnership extends beyond hardware to intelligence sharing, joint naval exercises, and officer exchange programs. Defense analysts view these developments as part of a broader realignment of the regional security architecture. These are the stories shaping our world this Monday evening. From ceasefire violations threatening Middle East stability, to trade disputes between major democracies. From environmental emergencies to scientific controversies. From forgotten humanitarian crises to strategic realignments. At Inside News, we believe every story matters. The underreported crisis in Sudan deserves attention just as much as the headlines from Washington and Jerusalem. The choices made in conservation labs will shape ecosystems for generations. The vulnerabilities in our digital infrastructure affect daily life across continents. Thank you for trusting us. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that awareness is the first step toward change. Good evening, and safe travels to all.